I died because I was too tired to notice my own heart stopping. One moment, I was standing beneath the white lights of an emergency ward, holding a paper cup of cold coffee while 3 monitors screamed at once. The next, I opened my eyes beneath a velvet canopy and found a woman dressed in silver waiting beside my bed. She held a gold envelope, as though it contained my execution order. Her Majesty commands the royal consort to attend her rut chamber before dawn. I stared at her. She stared back. Behind her, 6 maids stood with their heads bowed. None of them looked frightened for the queen. They looked frightened for me. That was my first clue, that my new life was not going well. My second clue was the ring around my left thumb. It was made from black metal, carved with a silver crown. The skin beneath it was dark and bruised, as though someone had forced the ring onto a hand that had tried to resist. My third clue arrived when the maid unfolded a ceremonial robe across the foot of the bed. It was nearly transparent. "No," I said. The maid's face lost what little color it had. "Your Highness." I pushed myself upright. The room tilted, and a burst of unfamiliar memories struck me hard enough to steal my breath. Cold marble beneath my knees. A woman's voice ordering me to apologize. Letters returned unopened. Servants whispering that the queen despised the scent of her own wife. A locked door. A hand shaking while it signed a confession. Then pain. So much pain that my new body curled forward before I understood it did not belong to me. The maid took a hesitant step closer. "The queen's rut has begun. You have always attended her." I touched the ring. Another memory flashed through me. A young woman with pale hair kneeling outside a dark chamber, begging the guards to let her enter. She had waited there until her knees bled. The queen had never opened the door. I did not know the woman's name yet, but grief lived in every corner of the room. It lingered in the dried flowers beside the window and the stack of sealed letters beneath the desk. It trembled through the fingers I now possessed. I looked at the ceremonial robe again. Then I picked up the gold summons, folded it in half and placed it on the bedside table. "I'm going back to sleep." The maid made a sound like a person choking. "Your Highness, perhaps you did not hear me. Her Majesty is in rut." "I heard you." "She summoned you personally." "That sounds like a problem for Her Majesty." The silence that followed was almost impressive. The maids exchanged horrified glances. The woman in silver clutched her hands together. "If you refuse, the palace will hear of it." "I hope the palace enjoys the story." I pulled the blanket over my shoulders and closed my eyes. For the first time in my life, death had improved my schedule. I expected guards to drag me from bed. Instead, I slept for nearly an hour. Then my door exploded inward. The sound woke me before the scent did. It rolled into the room like heat from an opened furnace, rich with cedar, smoke, and something sharp enough to make my borrowed instincts panic. Every maid dropped to her knees. I sat up slowly. The woman standing in the doorway was tall, broad-shouldered and dressed in black trousers beneath an open military coat. Her dark hair had been tied away from her face, but several strands clung to skin damp with sweat. Gold burned in her eyes. The crown on her head seemed unnecessary. Everything about her already commanded obedience. Alpha Queen Seraphine Draven had come to collect the wife who had ignored her. My body knew her before my mind did. My pulse raced. My mouth went dry. Fear locked my muscles, not because Seraphine had touched me, but because the woman who had owned this body had learned to freeze whenever the queen looked at her. Seraphine's gaze moved from my face to the folded summons. "You were called." "So I was told." A growl vibrated through her chest. The maids pressed their foreheads to the floor. I studied the queen as I would have studied a patient. Her pupils were uneven. Her breathing was too fast. Sweat darkened the collar of her shirt, but her hands were cold enough that the knuckles had turned pale. This was not a normal rut. At least I did not think it was. I had been a nurse in my previous life, not an expert on royal alphas, but shock looked the same in every universe. Seraphine crossed the room. You begged for my summons during every cycle for 2 years. Now you receive one and decide to sleep. The words should have sounded cruel. Instead, they sounded confused. I slid my legs over the side of the bed. The floor was cold beneath my feet. Sit down. Her eyes narrowed. You are giving me an order. I am trying to keep you from collapsing. I do not collapse. Her knees buckled. I caught her wrist before she struck the bedpost. The moment our skin touched, my body reacted with a rush of heat and terror. Images flashed behind my eyes. Seraphine turning away from a banquet table, Seraphine reading a report with disgust, Seraphine ordering guards to remove her wife from the throne room. But beneath those memories, I felt the queen's pulse stuttering. Everyone out, I said. No one moved. Seraphine gripped my wrist. Her voice dropped into a rough command. Leave us. The servants fled. The doors closed behind them. I guided Seraphine to the edge of the bed. She allowed it only because she was using most of her strength to remain conscious. What did you take? I asked. Nothing. Medicine, suppressants, wine, poison. Choose the answer that makes you look least foolish. Her stare could have broken stone. My physician prepared the standard tonic. When? An hour before the summons. Where is the bottle? She nodded toward the inner pocket of her coat. I removed a small glass vial. Only a few silver drops remained inside. I brought it close to my nose, and my borrowed instincts recoiled. The scent was wrong. There was cedar from Seraphine's pheromones, bitter herbs, and something sweet enough to be dangerous. Do you always feel this bad during your rut? Her jaw tightened. My cycles have become more severe over the past 2 years. 2 years. The same period during which the woman whose body I wore had supposedly become obsessive, unstable, and desperate. Who prepares the tonic? Lady Celestine. The name triggered another memory. A beautiful older woman, fastening the black mating ring onto a trembling hand. A soothing voice, saying the queen required obedience. A cup of medicine that made Lysandra's limbs weak. Lysandra. The name rose from somewhere deep inside me, wrapped in sorrow. I was inside the body of Lysandra Vale, the Alpha Queen's hated Omega wife. And the physician responsible for Seraphine's worsening rut was the same woman who had controlled Lysandra's medicine. I placed the vial on the table. You need water, salt, and fresh air, not me. Seraphine's eyes brightened with fever. You are my bonded Omega. That does not make me medicine. A dangerous silence stretched between us. Her scent intensified, pushing against my senses. My body wanted to move closer. It wanted to soothe her, expose my throat, and surrender to instincts I had never possessed in my previous life. I dug my nails into my palm. Seraphine noticed. Something changed in her expression. She released my wrist. I did not summon you to force an encounter, she said. No, the robe suggests otherwise. Her gaze shifted toward the transparent fabric. Confusion sharpened into anger. I did not order that. Someone did. Seraphine stood too quickly. I caught her shoulders and pushed her back onto the mattress. You can threaten me after your pulse stops trying to escape your body. You speak differently. I died recently. It changed my priorities. Her eyes searched mine. I realized too late that I had said the truth aloud. What did you say? Nothing useful. Seraphine reached for me, then stopped before her fingers touched my face. It was the smallest hesitation, but I saw it. Lysandra, she said quietly, what happened to you? I almost laughed. It was a terrible question, to ask the stranger living inside a dead woman's skin. I don't know yet. I gave Seraphine water mixed with salt from the breakfast tray. I opened the windows despite the winter air and made her remove the heavy coat trapping heat against her body. She followed my instructions with visible resentment. When another wave of rut struck, She gripped the edge of the bed hard enough to splinter the wood. I remained several steps away. "Come closer," she said. "Ask properly." Her head lifted. The queen was not accustomed to requests. Every muscle in her body showed it. "Lysandra. That is my name, not permission." Her breathing became harsher. For a moment, I believed instinct would win. Then Seraphine closed her eyes. "Will you sit beside me?" I considered the question. "Yes." I sat on the far edge of the bed, leaving space between us. Her scent softened slightly. "May I hold your hand?" The request sounded as though each word had been dragged across broken glass. I placed my hand on the blanket, palm upward. She took it carefully. No gripping, no command, no claim. We remained like that until the trembling in her fingers eased. When the worst of the wave passed, Seraphine looked at our joined hands as if she had never seen them before. "You used to touch me without being asked," she said. "Did you want me to?" Her expression closed. "That is not the same question." "It should be." She released me. By sunrise, the fever had fallen enough for Seraphine to walk. Before leaving, she picked up the medicine vial and the ceremonial robe. "Who dressed you for the summons?" "The woman in silver. Lady Muriel, Celestine's senior attendant." Seraphine looked toward the door. The cold fury on her face was more frightening than her rut had been. "I will investigate." I folded my arms. "Will you?" She turned back. Was that an accusation? It was a prediction. Powerful people often promise investigations when they want inconvenient people to become quiet. "I am not people, I am your queen." "That may be the problem." Seraphine stared at me for several long seconds. Then she left without ordering me punished. The palace punished me anyway. Breakfast never arrived. The fire in my room was extinguished before noon. My warm clothes disappeared from the wardrobe, and 2 guards were placed outside my door to prevent me from entering the main palace. When I asked the maid for food, she looked at the floor. "Lady Celestine says Your Highness requires purification after refusing a sacred marital duty." "Does purification usually involve starvation?" "I do not make the rules." "No, you only enforce them." Her face tightened with shame. I regretted the words immediately. She was frightened, and frightened servants survived by obeying whoever held power closest to them. "What is your name?" I asked. "Tessa." "How long have you served in this wing?" 7 months. "Did the queen order my fire removed?" Tessa hesitated. "That is what we were told." "By whom?" Her eyes flicked toward the guards. I understood. "Bring me paper." "Your Highness." "Not food, not fire, paper." An hour later, a single sheet appeared beneath my door. I wrote 4 lines. To Alpha Queen Seraphine Draven. "Your investigation is progressing beautifully. Your wife has no food, no fire, and no permission to leave her room. I assume this is the evidence-gathering phase. Mara." I stopped. Mara was no longer my name here. Slowly, I crossed it out and wrote Lysandra. The correction hurt more than it should have. I folded the message and gave it to Tessa. By evening, the guards were gone. 10 minutes later, servants arrived with firewood, hot soup, and 3 frightened apologies. Seraphine did not come. Instead, she sent another gold envelope. I nearly burned it without opening it. Inside, I found an invitation to the Hall of Devotion, where I was expected to make a public statement regarding my refusal of the Queen's summons. At the bottom, someone had written in blue ink, "The royal consort will kneel before the throne and request forgiveness." I smiled. Tessa looked concerned. "Your Highness." "I'll attend." Relief touched her face. I didn't say I would kneel. The Hall of Devotion was designed to make guilt feel holy. Silver statues watched from every wall. Hundreds of courtiers filled the balconies, dressed in dark formal robes. At the center of the hall, directly before the empty throne, waited a blue velvet cushion. My knees began to ache the moment I saw it. Lysandra had knelt there before. Not once. Dozens of times. The memories came in fragments as I walked down the aisle. Lysandra, apologizing for wearing the wrong perfume. Lysandra, confessing to jealousy after speaking to an ambassador. Lysandra, accepting blame for a banquet she had not organized. Every public humiliation had begun with that cushion. Lady Celestine stood beside it. She was beautiful in the careful way of people who had spent years designing a harmless face. Her silver hair was braided over one shoulder, and a physician's chain rested against her blue robes. "My dear Lysandra," she said warmly, "we were all worried." My body recoiled at the sound of her voice. Celestine noticed. Her smile deepened. A parchment waited on a stand beside the cushion. I picked it up. It was a confession. I had supposedly disrupted the Queen's rut out of spite, refused my marital duty, and endangered the stability of the crown. The final paragraph requested that Lady Celestine resume control of my medicine and household discipline. "You prepared this quickly," I said. "We wish to spare you the strain of finding the correct words." "How thoughtful. Please kneel." Every person in the hall leaned forward. I folded the confession. Then I walked past the cushion. A murmur spread through the balconies. Celestine's smile vanished. "Your Highness, the ritual position is behind you." I saw it. "You cannot address the court while standing. Then the court will have to adapt. You have been given a chance to repair the harm you caused." "What harm?" "The Queen's rut became dangerously unstable after your refusal. Her medicine made her unstable." The hall went silent. Celestine's eyes sharpened. "That is a serious accusation." "It should be. I'm making it seriously." "You are not a physician." "No, but I know what poisoning looks like." Another murmur moved through the crowd. Celestine stepped closer. "You have been confused for some time. The court is aware of your episodes." "What episodes?" "Jealous rages, fixation, attempts to enter the Queen's chamber without permission." The memories struck again. Lysandra kneeling outside a door. Lysandra holding letters. Lysandra begging a guard to deliver a warning about the tonic. She had not been begging for Seraphine's affection. She had been trying to reach her. I looked at Celestine. "You wrote the reports. I documented your behavior. You interpreted my behavior. Those are different things." A door opened behind the throne. Seraphine entered. The entire hall knelt. I remained standing. Her gaze found me instantly. Then it moved toward the velvet cushion, the confession in my hand, and Lady Celestine beside me. "What is happening?" she asked. Celestine bowed. "Your Majesty, the consort is suffering another disturbance." "I am suffering a ceremony," I said. Seraphine descended the steps. "You were not ordered to confess." Celestine turned. "Your Majesty, the ritual office believed a public correction would prevent political unrest." "You used my seal." "The office has possessed ceremonial authority since your coronation." "Not over my wife's body." The word wife changed the room. Celestine recovered quickly. "The consort has accused your physician of poisoning you." "I accused someone of tampering with the tonic. You volunteered yourself." Seraphine stopped beside me. Her expression remained unreadable, but her scent carried anger. "Bring me the confession," she ordered. I handed it to her. She read it once. Then again. Her fingers tightened. "I did not authorize this." Celestine lowered her head. "The language follows established precedent." "How many times has Lysandra been brought here?" No one answered. Seraphine looked toward the keeper of rituals. The old man trembled. 11 times, Your Majesty." The Queen's voice dropped. "For what offenses?" "Improper dress, Emotional instability, jealous conduct, disobedience, unauthorized attempts to contact the royal chamber. Seraphine turned to me. I watched realization enter her face slowly and painfully. You told me she was demanding access, she said to Celestine. She was. I was carrying warnings, I said. The words came from me, but grief behind them belonged to Lysandra. Images flooded my mind. A bottle hidden in her sleeve. A letter explaining that the medicine smelled sweet. Guards taking both away. Celestine telling her that an unwanted wife had no right to disturb the queen. I gripped the edge of the confession stand until the memories passed. Seraphine noticed my shaking. She reached for me. I stepped away. Her hand stopped in the empty air. Clear the hall, she ordered. Celestine lifted her head. Your Majesty, dismissing the court now could suggest the accusation has merit. It does have merit. Shock moved through the room. Seraphine raised the vial she had taken from my bedroom. My private laboratory found foxbane extract in the Rut tonic. Celestine's face remained calm, but her scent changed. Fear. Foxbane regulates aggression in controlled doses. In uncontrolled doses, it causes fever, confusion, and loss of restraint. The dosage was approved. By whom? The medical council. I questioned the council this morning. They have not approved Foxbane for me in 3 years. Celestine looked toward the balconies. The court had become very interested in the floor. Seraphine continued. The vial also contained omega scent concentrate. That revelation struck even me. Celestine's composure cracked. Seraphine's rut had not merely been worsened. Someone had tried to drive her toward me. Toward Lysandra. If the queen had lost control, the palace could have blamed the despised wife who had supposedly been obsessed with her for years. Celestine bowed deeply. I request a private audience to explain. No, I said. Every face turned toward me. I placed the unsigned confession on the velvet cushion. She wanted a public ritual. Let her explain publicly. Celestine's eyes met mine. For the first time, I saw hatred without the mask. This woman is not stable, she said. Your Majesty must see that. Her manner has changed overnight. Her knowledge is impossible. She may be enchanted. The accusation created immediate whispers. Seraphine moved in front of me. I almost allowed it. Almost. Then I stepped around her. Do not hide me behind you. Her jaw tightened. They are accusing you of sorcery. They have accused Lysandra of everything else. Let me answer this one myself. I am trying to protect you. Protection that removes my voice is another kind of cage. The queen went still. Slowly, she stepped aside. The court saw it. An alpha queen yielding space to the wife she had once allowed them to humiliate. I faced Celestine. You are correct about one thing. I have changed. Seraphine looked at me. I continued before fear could stop me. I remember dying. The hall disappeared beneath a wave of silence. I remember white lights, machines, a world without crowns or mating laws. Then I woke in this body carrying memories that were not mine. Celestine smiled faintly, as if I had proven her accusation. But Seraphine did not look afraid. She looked devastated. What happened to Lysandra? She asked. I don't know. My voice nearly broke. I only know she left pieces of herself behind. Fear when you enter a room, pain when I see that cushion, nausea when Celestine speaks. She was trying to warn you. Someone made certain you never heard her. Celestine raised her chin. A convenient fantasy. Then open Lysandra's rooms, I said. Search beneath the window seat. I had seen it in the memories. A loose wooden panel beneath the place where Lysandra had spent every evening watching the distant lights of Seraphine's tower. The queen sent guards immediately. Celestine asked to leave. Seraphine refused. We waited in the hall. Minutes stretched into nearly an hour. No one spoke. At last, the guards returned carrying a narrow wooden box. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Every envelope bore Seraphine's name. None had been opened. The Queen took the first letter with shaking hands. She read silently. Then she passed it to me. Your Majesty, the new tonic burns my throat and makes my memory disappear. Lady Celestine says you ordered the dosage increased, but I fear the seal on the instruction is not yours. Please allow me to speak with you privately. Lysandra. The second letter contained dates. The third listed symptoms. The fourth begged Seraphine to inspect the medical ledgers. The fifth apologized for continuing to write when the Queen had made her hatred clear. The final letter was unfinished. If you never read this, then I hope one day someone less frightened than I am will wake inside my life. I hope she refuses the summons. I hope she stands where I knelt. I hope she lives. My vision blurred. Those words had brought me here. Lysandra had not summoned a hero. She had asked for someone too, exhausted to be afraid. Seraphine read the final letter twice. When she looked up, the Alpha Queen had tears in her eyes. Celestine stepped backward. The guards seized her before she reached the side door. This proves nothing, she said. The letters could have been written today. Then we will examine the ink, Seraphine replied. The archive was damaged last winter. Records are incomplete. Which archive? I asked. Celestine said nothing. Seraphine's face hardened. The medical archive. Flames were already rising from the eastern tower when we reached it. Smoke poured through the upper windows. Servants ran across the courtyard carrying buckets, but the doors had been barred from inside. Celestine had prepared for failure. Seraphine ordered the guards to break the doors. I grabbed her arm. If the fire reaches the medicine stores, the whole tower could explode. I need the ledgers. You need to stay alive long enough to use them. She looked at my hand around her sleeve. I released her. A young clerk stumbled from behind the tower, coughing. He held a leather book beneath his coat. Your Majesty, he gasped. Lady Celestine ordered us to destroy the consort files. I saved what I could. The guards carried him to safety. Seraphine opened the ledger. Page after page documented years of medicine, sent to Lysandra's rooms. Suppressants in doses high enough to damage the heart. Sedatives. Scent stimulants. Memory-dulling herbs. Beside, every entry was a copied version of the Queen's seal. Seraphine's expression became empty. That frightened me more than rage. Did you authorize any of this? I asked. No. The fire roared behind us. Then who benefited? She read further. Payments from the medical office led to 3 members of the Succession Council. The same council that had opposed Seraphine's marriage to Lysandra, a minor noble Omega with no powerful family. If Lysandra appeared unstable, the marriage could be dissolved. If Seraphine lost control during a public rut, the council could declare her unfit. Celestine had been weakening both women, turning each into evidence against the other. Seraphine closed the ledger. I believed every report. You believed the reports because you wanted them to be true. The words were cruel. They were also true. She looked at me. I thought she married me for the crown. She pursued me relentlessly before the wedding. Did she? That is what I was told. By Celestine. Seraphine closed her eyes. Yes. I thought of Lysandra writing letters to a woman who would not read them, kneeling in public because resistance had been recorded as madness, taking poison because the bottle carried a forged royal seal. You were deceived, I said, but she was destroyed. I know. No, you are beginning to know. The fire illuminated the tears on Seraphine's face. She did not ask me to comfort her. That was the first apology she gave me. Celestine's allies moved before dawn. The Succession Council accused me of enchanting the Queen, forging Lysandra's letters, and starting the archive fire to destroy evidence of my crimes. They demanded a public tribunal. Seraphine wanted to imprison them immediately. I refused. If you arrest everyone who accuses me, they will say I control you. They are trying to execute you. Then let them present their case. I will not risk your life. You do not own the risk. Her scent sharpened. You are my wife. This ring says that. I have not decided whether I do. The words struck her hard. She looked at the black band around my thumb. I can place guards around your chambers and become my jailer for my protection. I am trying to keep you alive. So was Celestine, according to every report she wrote. Seraphine flinched. I regretted the comparison, but I did not withdraw it. After a long silence, she said, "What do you need?" Access to the tribunal, every surviving record, the right to speak without interruption, and no restraints. They will demand them. Then refuse. She nodded. Anything else? I looked toward the closed door. Knock before entering my rooms. The Queen's expression changed. Not anger. Shame. I should have done so today. Yes. I will do so tomorrow. The tribunal filled the royal judgment hall. This time, there was no velvet cushion. The council had replaced it with iron restraints. Seraphine entered first and took the throne. I followed alone. When the guards moved toward me with the chains, the Queen's voice stopped them. The consort will not be restrained. Counselor Thuron rose. Your Majesty, she stands accused of enchantment and treason. She stands accused. She has not been convicted. She may use her influence over you. Seraphine's gaze became glacial. My judgment is my own. Thuron smiled. That is precisely what an enchanted ruler would say. The council laughed nervously. I approached the center of the hall. On one side stood Celestine, pale but composed. On the other waited the medical council, ritual officers and servants who had enforced Lysandra's punishments. Thuron presented the accusations first. My personality had changed overnight. I possessed medical knowledge beyond my education. The Queen's rut had intensified in my presence. An archive burned after I accused the royal physician. All true in their own way. Then Celestine spoke. She described Lysandra as unstable, manipulative, and obsessed with gaining access to the Queen's bed. She read old statements from servants who claimed Lysandra had cried, shouted, and refused medicine. Every statement had been shaped to make suffering sound like guilt. When she finished, Thuron looked at me. How do you answer? I agree that I am not the same woman who lived here before. Whispers spread through the hall. I remember another life. You may call that enchantment, divine interference, or the final wish of a dying woman. I cannot prove which answer is correct. Thuron's smile widened. But I can prove that Lysandra Vale was poisoned. The clerk carried the rescued ledger forward. A physician independent of the palace confirmed the dosages. A seal expert demonstrated where Seraphine's mark had been copied. Tessa testified that medicine arrived through Celestine's attendants and that Lysandra was punished whenever she refused it. Then we opened the letters. Seraphine read the final one aloud. Her voice broke on the last sentence. I hope she lives. The judgment hall became completely still. Celestine finally lost control. She would have ruined everything, she snapped. Thuron turned toward her. She continued before anyone could silence her. The Queen was young, reckless, and bonded to a weak Omega with no political value. The northern houses would never have accepted the marriage. We needed Lysandra removed. So you poisoned her, Seraphine said. I corrected a mistake. The Queen rose. Her alpha power rolled across the hall, forcing half the council to their knees. Celestine remained, standing through visible effort. You made my wife ill, Seraphine said. She was already fragile. You forged my orders. To preserve your throne. You drugged my rut. to create the crisis necessary for the council to act. You expected me to attack her. Celestine looked at me with disgust. I expected instinct to finish what sentiment had complicated. Seraphine descended from the throne. The council guards moved uncertainly. Celestine smiled. You cannot condemn me without condemning yourself. You ignored your wife for 2 years. You accepted every report because contempt was easier than doubt. I built the cage, Your Majesty, but you left her inside it. Seraphine stopped. Pain crossed her face. Celestine was guilty. That did not make her final words false. I moved between them. This tribunal is not about whether the queen failed Lysandra. Seraphine looked at me. She did. The words echoed through the hall. But Seraphine's guilt does not erase Celestine's crimes, and Celestine's crimes do not erase Seraphine's guilt. Both truths can stand. I removed the black mating ring. A collective breath moved through the room. The skin beneath it was scarred. I placed the ring on the floor between myself and the throne. This marriage was used as a weapon against Lysandra. Her title gave the palace access to her body. Her bond was treated as permanent consent. Her attempts to seek help were recorded as disobedience. Seraphine stared at the ring. I will not wear it because the law says I belong to the queen. Thuron rose quickly. The royal bond cannot be rejected during an active investigation. Seraphine turned toward him. Then the law changes today. He froze. The queen removed the silver chain of marital authority from around her neck. Every clause requiring the royal consort to attend my rut is dissolved. Every medical order issued without the consort's witnessed consent is void. Every ritual confession recorded against Lysandra Vale will be publicly withdrawn. Thuron's face reddened. Your Majesty, the council must approve. The council participated in poisoning my wife. Her voice was quiet. No one challenged her again. Seraphine looked at me. You are free to leave the palace. The words hurt unexpectedly. Perhaps because Lysandra had waited so long to hear them. Your title, property, and personal guard will remain yours whether you stay or go, Seraphine continued. No bond, law, or order will be used to summon you again. She picked up the black ring. For one terrible moment, I feared she would try to return it. Instead, she placed it on the evidence table. Then she stepped back. The queen, who could command an army, gave me space to walk away. Celestine and the counselors were taken into custody. The remaining officers knelt. I did not. Neither did Seraphine ask me to. I left the judgment hall alone. For 3 days, the queen did not visit. Workers repaired the fire in my room. Tessa brought meals without requesting permission from the ritual office. The guards outside my door were assigned to obey me rather than confine me. On the 4th evening, someone knocked. I knew who it was before she spoke. Lysandra. I looked at the door. The old body memory expected it to open without permission. It remained closed. You may enter. Seraphine stepped inside, carrying a wooden tray. She had left her crown behind. What is that? I asked. Dinner. I have servants. They said you have refused everything sweet since waking. I don't trust palace desserts. That seems reasonable. She placed the tray on the table. Bread, soup, and sliced fruit. Nothing elaborate. I watched the kitchen prepare it, she said. Then I tasted everything first. You are the queen. Perhaps you should stop volunteering as a poison tester. I'm learning new priorities. I sat beside the window. She remained standing. You may sit. Seraphine chose a chair across from me rather than the place at my side. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, the independent physicians believe Lysandra died from damage caused by the suppressants. Her heart stopped during the night. The explanation settled over me. My old heart had stopped beneath hospital lights. Lysandra's had stopped alone in this room. Perhaps death had created a doorway between us. Perhaps her final wish had found the nearest exhausted soul. "I am sorry," Seraphine whispered. I stared at the dark window. "I don't know whether she can hear you." I should have said it while she was alive. "Yes." Seraphine accepted the answer. She visited again the next evening. And the evening after that. She always knocked. Sometimes she brought updates about the investigation. Sometimes she brought books Lysandra had once requested from the Royal Library. Once, she brought every unopened letter that had been recovered from Celestine's office. She never asked me to forgive her. That made forgiveness possible, though not immediate. Weeks passed. The palace changed around us. Servants were permitted to report abuse without approval from household officers. Medical orders required a second signature. Public confession rituals were abolished, and the Hall of Devotion was converted into an archive where accused people could examine the evidence against them. Seraphine had the blue velvet cushion burned. I watched from a balcony. It felt less like revenge than a funeral. The black mating ring remained locked in the royal evidence room. Seraphine never mentioned it. One evening, I found her asleep in the chair beside my window. She had come to discuss new protections for Omegas in arranged royal marriages. Exhaustion had closed her eyes before she finished the first page. Without the crown, she looked younger, lonelier. I placed a blanket over her shoulders. Her eyes opened immediately. I did not mean to fall asleep. Apparently it is contagious. A faint smile touched her mouth. It was the first time I had seen her smile. My chest tightened. Not because of a bond. Because I wanted to see it again. Then winter began to soften. 3 months after the tribunal, Seraphine stopped visiting. The first evening, I assumed royal duties had delayed her. The second, I sent Tessa to ask whether the queen was ill. Tessa returned pale. Her Majesty's rut began this morning. I stood too quickly. Who is treating her? The independent physicians. She ordered the northern tower sealed. Why? Tessa hesitated. The queen believes her scent may distress you. I looked toward the distant tower visible from my window. No gold summons had arrived. No ceremonial robe waited on my bed. Seraphine had promised never to call me again. She was keeping that promise even while suffering alone. I went to the evidence room first. The guards opened it at my command. The black ring rested inside a glass case. I stared at it for a long time. The first time I wore it, it had been a bruise left by another woman's captivity. It could never become innocent. But perhaps symbols were not required to remain what cruel people had made them. I opened the case. Then I walked across the palace. The northern tower guards bowed when they saw me. Her Majesty has ordered that no Omega be admitted. I am not here because I was ordered. The captain looked uncertain. I raised my hand. The black ring rested loosely around my thumb, no longer forced against the skin. I am here because I choose to be. The guards opened the door. Seraphine's scent filled the stairwell, powerful but controlled. She had locked herself inside the upper chamber and placed guards between herself and every person she might harm. I climbed alone. At the final door, I knocked. A strained voice answered from within. Go away. No. Silence. Then, Lysandra. Mara, I said. The name left my mouth before I could stop it. I had not spoken it since waking in this world. The door remained closed. Who is Mara? Seraphine asked. The woman I was before I became Lysandra. I heard her move closer. Which name should I use? The question broke something open inside me. Both, I whispered, for now. Her forehead touched the other side of the door. You should leave. The physicians say the rut will pass by morning. The physicians are frightened of you. They are wise. I am a former emergency nurse. Fear was part of the uniform. You do not owe me this. I know. I released you from the summons. I know. You may leave the palace whenever you wish. I know. Her breathing shook. Then why are you here? I looked at the ring on my hand. Because the first time you asked me to attend your rut, the palace believed my body belonged to you. I placed my palm against the door. This time, it belongs to me. Seraphine did not move. And I am choosing to stay. The lock turned slowly. She opened the door only a few inches. Her eyes burned gold, and sweat dampened her dark hair. Both hands were visible, held at her sides. She did not reach for me. May I come in? I asked. Yes. I stepped across the threshold. She immediately moved backward, giving me space. The room contained water, medicine, and enough restraints to secure a wild animal. Seraphine had chained one end of a silver cuff to the wall, but the other remained open. You were planning to lock yourself down. If I lost control, I picked up the loose cuff. Then I dropped it onto the floor. You asked permission during the first rut. I nearly failed. But you didn't. My restraint should not be treated as heroism. No, it should be treated as the minimum. A breath of laughter escaped her despite the pain. I approached slowly. Her scent wrapped around me, warm and overwhelming, but it no longer felt like a command. May I hold your hand? I asked. Seraphine looked at me, as though the question meant more than any vow. Yes. I placed my hand in hers. Her fingers closed carefully. May I sit beside you? Yes. We sat on the edge of the bed, leaving a familiar distance between us. Another wave struck her. Her shoulders trembled, but she did not pull me closer. I moved first. I rested my head against her shoulder. Seraphine stopped breathing. This is still not permission for anything else, I murmured. I understand. And I may change my mind. I understand. And when this is over, you are still responsible for everything that happened before I arrived. I know. I lifted my head. Tears shone in her eyes. I cannot love you as an apology to Lysandra. I would never ask you to. I cannot become the wife she wanted to be. I do not want you to perform for me. The old theme of this life settled between us. Lysandra had been forced to perform obedience, devotion, and desperation. I had survived by refusing. Now Seraphine was asking for nothing. That was why I could finally offer something. I touched her face. She closed her eyes. May I kiss you? She whispered. I let the silence stretch, just long enough for both of us to understand that the answer was mine. Yes. Her kiss was gentle. No hunger, no command, no desperate attempt to satisfy the rut burning through her blood. Only a question answered carefully. When we separated, she pressed her forehead against mine. The ring, she said. I chose it today. You do not have to keep it tomorrow. I know. You do not have to remain my wife. I know. You do not have to love me. I looked at the woman who had once believed every lie about Lysandra, then destroyed the laws that had allowed those lies to become chains. Trust was not the absence of damage. It was what people built after they stopped pretending the damage had never happened. I don't love you yet, I said. Seraphine nodded, though pain moved across her face. But I came to your door. Her eyes lifted. And tomorrow, I continued, you may come to mine. A fragile smile appeared. Will I need a gold summons? No. A ceremonial robe? Absolutely not. A royal decree. Try knocking. She laughed softly. Outside the northern tower, the palace waited for news of its queen's rut. No announcement came. No servant recorded a marital duty fulfilled. No council measured obedience. The woman beside me was not a ruler claiming her consort, and I was not a hated wife begging to be chosen. We were simply two women sitting together through the longest night of winter. One of us had been taught that power meant never asking. The other had died twice before learning that freedom could include staying. By dawn, Seraphine's fever had broken. She fell asleep with her hand resting open between us. I could have left. Instead, I placed my hand inside hers. Not because a ring commanded it. Not because a rut required it. Not because Lysandra had once dreamed of being loved by the queen who misunderstood her. I stayed because the choice was finally mine. And when Seraphine woke, she did not close her fingers around me until I closed mine first.